Stop. Before I tell you what I found, I need you to do something. Look at the wall nearest to you. Now measure the room with your eyes. Does it look right to you? Because I did that once, and I wish with everything I am that I hadn't. They say every house has bones. What they don't tell you is that sometimes those bones don't belong to the house. I bought this Victorian fixer-upper 6 months ago, stripped floors, patched walls, learned every creak and groan of this place the way you learn a person. I thought I knew it completely. I was wrong. And the moment I realized that was the moment it let me know it had been watching me first. It started with a draft, not from a window, not from a vent. A cold, metallic-smelling current of air in a hallway that had no business having wind at all. The kind of cold that doesn't feel like weather. It feels like intention. I pressed my hand to the wall and felt it pulse once, like a held breath being released. That's when I noticed the seam in the wallpaper. A hairline crack running perfectly straight. Too straight to be age, too deliberate to be damage. I peeled it back, and behind it was a door, no handle, no hinges on my side. Just a door that the blueprints never mentioned, like the house had been built around a secret it was trying to keep. I told myself it was a crawl space, a forgotten pantry. A builder's mistake from 1891. I told myself a lot of things. The moment I stepped through, I heard it close behind me, not slam close, deliberately, quietly. The way a trap closes, I turned around. The wall was solid brick, the door was gone. And somewhere ahead of me in the dark, something exhaled. I want to be very clear with you right now. I'm telling you this story from the other side of it, but I'm not sure anymore which side other side means. So stay with me. Because what I found in that room didn't just happen to me. It knows you're listening. I still had matches in my pocket. When I struck the first one, the light didn't push the dark back. The dark pushed back against the light. For just a second, I thought the flame was going to lose. But it held, and what it showed me, I would have traded anything to unsee. The room was bigger than my entire house. That's not a metaphor. It was architecturally, physically, impossibly larger than the exterior walls of the building I'd been living in for 6 months. Like the inside of the room refused to follow the rules of the outside, and the walls, every inch of them, were covered in Polaroid photographs, thousands, maybe tens of thousands, pinned with rusted sewing needles that had bled rust streaks down the wall like dried tears. I held the match closer to the nearest photo. It was me asleep in my bed. The next one, me at my kitchen table eating, not looking at the camera, not posed, just me, living my life, not knowing. I moved faster. Photo after photo after photo. All of me. Every room of my house, every hour of the day. Months of surveillance from inside the walls, from inside this room, from whatever had been living here in the dark, watching me sleep through gaps in the plaster like I was the exhibit. And then I found the last row. The ones pinned at eye level, in the center of the wall. They were dated. Tomorrow's date. In them, I was in this room, screaming. I dropped the match, struck another. Forced myself to keep moving because standing still in that room felt like giving permission for something to happen. There was a desk in the center, mahogany, old, too clean for a sealed room, like someone dusted it regularly. On it sat 2 things, a rotary phone black as a cavity and a leather-bound ledger so thick it looked like it had been fed for decades. I opened the ledger. The pages went back to 1890. Every person who had ever lived in the house, their full name, move-in date, and a column on the right side labeled simply departure. Not move-out date, not sale date, departure. Every name had one. Clara Whitmore, 1891, departed March 4th. Thomas Aldrich, 1923, departed March 4th. The Fenn family, 1967, all 4 of them, same date, departed March 4th. Every single entry, different years, same date, March 4th. I don't know when you're watching this, but I need you to understand what I'm about to tell you. I found my name at the bottom of the last page, and next to my name, in fresh ink, wet enough that it smeared when I touched it, was written, "Departure today." 3:14 a.m. I looked at my watch. 3:09 a.m. The phone rang, not a ring like a phone call, not a mechanical trill, a long, flat, colorless tone, the kind that doesn't invite you to answer. The kind that tells you that something already knows you're there. I picked it up. My own voice came through the receiver. Not recorded, not mimicked. My voice, but slower, like a recording played at half speed, like the words had been soaked in water. And it said, "Don't look at the ceiling. Whatever you do, do not look up. I want you to think about what that does to a person. You're in a sealed room. You have 5 minutes before whatever departure means happens to you. And your own voice, from inside a phone that has no cord, tells you not to look up. The only thing in the universe you can now do is look up. So I looked up. There were no rafters, no ceiling boards, no plaster. Above me was a transparent membrane, like looking up through black water, and pressed against it from above, like children pressing their faces to a window, were hundreds of people, pale, still. Their eyes sewn shut with thick black cord, the thread so tight it had pulled the skin into deep puckers, but their heads were tilted down, toward me, perfectly, precisely, toward me. They couldn't see me. Their eyes were sewn shut, but they knew exactly where I was. One of them raised a hand slowly and pressed a single finger against the membrane, then another, then all of them at once, hundreds of hands pressing, tapping, the membrane rippling like a skin stretched over a drum, and the tapping became a rhythm, a heartbeat, a countdown, and the walls began to move, not fall, move. Closing in like the room was swallowing itself, the Polaroids tearing free and spinning like dead leaves in a wind tunnel, the desk sliding, the phone cord. There was a cord now. There hadn't been a cord wrapping itself around the leg of the chair. I ran into the dark, into the direction I thought the door had been, screaming until my voice was nothing, clawing at every surface, and then my hands found the bookshelf. From the other side, I pushed until something gave way, and I fell hard onto the hallway floor. I lay there, chest heaving, carpet fibers against my cheek. The clock on the wall said 3:15 a.m. I had survived by 60 seconds. I got up. I needed water. I needed to see my own face, to prove to myself I was still me, to confirm that the person who had walked out of that room was the same person who had walked in. I went to the bathroom, turned on the light, let the water run cold. I looked into the mirror. My reflection didn't move. I'm not speaking poetically. I stepped to the left. It stood still. I raised my hand. It stood still. It stood in the center of the mirror, hands at its sides, face pointed directly at me, and then slowly, so slowly it raised its hand, not to wave, to point down at the floor, at the room below. I looked down at my own hands and I saw it. The thread. 2 small puckers of skin at the corner of each eye. Freshly closed, not yet healed. I never left the room. The thing standing in my hallway, breathing hard, thinking it survived, that's what they release. A copy, a departure. A version of you so convinced it escaped that it never checks the mirror twice. I am still in the room. I am pressed against the glass above the next person who will find the door. And when they look up, I will already know exactly where they are. So I'll ask you again, look at the wall nearest to you. Count the feet. Does the room look right? Because if there's an inch of space that doesn't add up, it's not empty. It's waiting. And now that you've listened this far, it knows your name too. Stop. Before I say another word, do you hear that? That sound. Like something rolling across the floor above your head. Because if you do, it's already too late for you, just like it was for me. They say grief is heavy, but nobody ever tells you it sounds like a marble. My grandfather, Elias Thorne, was a man built from silence and silver. 40 years in a house that never once felt like a home, more like a fortress. A cage, maybe, built to keep something inside. When he died, his entire estate, the land, the wealth, the history of 4 generations, came down to 1 page of legal text and a velvet-lined box. Inside that box, a single silver key. His instructions were precise, almost surgical. "The house is yours, Leo, all of it." But the silver padlock on the attic door must never, under any circumstances, be opened. If you hear a sound from above the ceiling, a scrape, a thud, or something rolling, you do not investigate. You do not call for help. You leave. You run. Because once the attic starts talking, it's already decided who you are. For 3 months, I lived inside that silence. I grew to love the old Victorian sounds, the settling timbers, the radiator's hiss, the way the wind moved through the eaves like breath. I stopped being afraid of the dark corners. That was my first mistake. Because last night, the silence ended. A single sound, coming from directly above my head. Clack, clack, roll! A marble, rolling from the far corner of the attic, moving slowly, deliberately, stopping right above my pillow. And then, a voice. A voice that sounded so much like my own that my throat actually hurt hearing it, pushed through the floorboards like smoke through a keyhole. "I found the key, Leo!" Did you? And here's what you need to understand about what happened next. Because most people, when they tell a haunted house story, skip the part that matters most. They skip the part where they chose to stay. I didn't run. I know. We always think we're the exception, don't we? We always believe the rules were written for someone weaker, someone less rational, someone who doesn't understand that old houses settle, that pipes groan, that the mind creates monsters from stress and silence. So I sat up in bed, cold air biting at my shoulders, and I told myself a reasonable story. The silver key was still in its velvet box on the nightstand. The padlock! I checked from the doorway! Was still secure. Nothing had moved. Nothing had changed. But here's what I couldn't explain. For the next 4 hours, something moved above me. Not footsteps, not an animal. The sound of something heavy and soft being dragged across the rafters, like a sack of wet flour pulled in slow, deliberate arcs. Drag, pause, drag. It wasn't wandering. It wasn't panicked or random. It was circling. Now, I need you to stay with me for this next part, because what I found at the base of those stairs changed everything I thought I understood about this house, about my grandfather, and about myself. By daybreak, I felt hollow. I walked every hallway looking for a rational answer. Overhanging branches, squirrels in the vents, pipes expanding in the cold. Nothing. And then I saw it. At the base of the attic stairs. A fine, pale layer on the floorboards. I crouched down, touched it. Not dust. Pulverized bone. I looked up at the ceiling above me and my heart simply stopped. Because there were holes, tiny, almost surgical holes, drilled through the plaster in the hundreds. And they weren't random. They were arranged in the shape of a human face. My face. I found my grandfather's journals hidden behind a false brick in the wine cellar. The handwriting started neat, disciplined, precise. A man of method. But by the final entries, it had collapsed into jagged, clawing strokes, letters breaking apart like something had been pressing on his hand from outside. He called it the mirror. Self. His theory. Built over 40 years in that house. Was this, every act of deep buried shame creates a shadow. Not a metaphor, a physical one, a weight that forms in the air around you and usually fades. But in this house, those shadows had nowhere to go. They gathered in the attic. They thickened. They became real. He hadn't locked the attic to protect his secrets. He had locked it to protect me from the version of myself that lived up there, the version that knew every lie I'd ever told, every wrong I'd buried, every door I'd closed and walked away from. Now I need to tell you something, he wrote on the very last page of the final journal, something I'm not sure I should say out loud. Because once you understand what the mirror, self, actually wants, nothing about this sounds like fiction anymore. The pacing above me grew faster. It was no longer dragging, it was running. Back and forth above the kitchen, matching my footsteps with terrifying precision. When I stopped, it stopped. When I breathed, a wet, echoed breath came back through the vents. When I pressed my ear to the ceiling in desperation, I heard my own heartbeat. Coming from above me. The last journal entry read only this: "It doesn't want the house, Leo. It wants your confession. Give it the truth before it takes your face." The escalation came at noon. Full sunlight. No shadows to blame. No darkness to hide behind. I walked into my bedroom and found the silver padlock sitting in the center of my bed like a gift. Pristine. Unlocked. No sign of force, no damage. The key was gone. I looked toward the hallway. The attic door, sealed for 40 years, stood open exactly 1 inch. A thin line of absolute hungry darkness behind it. And I felt something I still can't name. Not fear. Something older. A pull, like gravity. The same feeling that makes you look over the edge of a building, even when you're terrified of heights. Not because you want to fall, because something in you needs to know how far down it goes. I climbed those stairs. And what I found at the top, you need to understand, was not what any haunted house story prepares you for. Because the horror in that attic wasn't meant to scare you. It was meant to judge you. Each step felt like a year being taken from my life. The temperature dropped until I could see my breath. My shadow on the wall moved a half-second too late. The attic was not what I expected. No cobwebs, no trunks, no furniture covered in sheets. It was a hall of mirrors. Thousands of them, every shape, every size, hanging from the rafters by rusted chains, floor to ceiling, wall to wall. And in every single one, I saw a different version of my life. In one mirror, an old man, wealthy with empty eyes. In another, a child screaming without sound. In most of them, I was dead. In the center of the room, beneath a column of sick yellow light, sat a chair. In it sat a figure wrapped in gray, salt-stained bandages. It held the silver key in one hand, turning it slowly. It had no face, only a jagged slit where a mouth should be. When it spoke, 10 mirrors shattered at once. It said, "Tell them the truth about the accident, Leo. Tell them, or I'll come down and tell them for you." The accident. A rainy night 5 years ago. A slick road. A moment of terrible, irreversible physics. And a choice I made in the seconds after. A choice I told myself was fear, was shock, that it wouldn't have mattered anyway. A hit and run. That no one saw. Or so I thought. The figure stood. As it rose, the bandages fell away in long, slow strips, revealing skin like wet parchment stretched too tight over something moving underneath. And then I heard it. The same sound from the ceiling, coming from inside the creature. Clack, clack, roll. Marbles, hundreds of them, moving under its skin. I'm going to tell you what I did next, but you need to understand something first, something the journals warned about and that I ignored. Because the worst thing in that attic isn't the creature finding you. It's you finding out which one of you is the copy. I ran. The attic door was gone. The mirrors had formed an endless corridor of my own terrified face. Every turn, another mirror, another memory. The car, the rain, headlights on a body in a ditch. The figure followed behind me, always closer in the reflections than in the room. And then, clarity. You can't outrun yourself. I grabbed a heavy brass candle holder. I swung it with everything I had left. The mirror didn't just crack, it gave way. Behind it wasn't a wall. It was a void. I jumped. I woke up on my bedroom floor. The attic door was closed. The padlock, back in place, untouched. Pale morning light through the curtains. I breathed. Hallucination, I told myself. Stress. Grief. A mind breaking under silence. I went to the bathroom, turned on the cold tap, let the water run over my face until I felt real again. I looked up into the mirror. My reflection wasn't moving. It stood perfectly still, staring at me with an expression I've never made. Cold, patient, certain. And then, slowly, it raised one hand and tapped the glass from the inside. Clack! Clack! Roll! I looked down at my hands. Gray, pale, like dried parchment. And then I felt it, moving slowly under my skin. A hard, round shape rolling toward my wrist. A marble. I'm not the one who made it out of the attic. If you're hearing this, understand that I recorded it before I realized what was happening to my hands. Before the gray reached my shoulders, I've been thinking about what it said. About confession. About the weight shame becomes when it has nowhere to go. If you're carrying something, a secret, a choice, a moment you drove away from and never looked back, don't let it build. Don't let it grow. Don't buy an old house. And whenever you do, don't check the attic.